Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show. John, welcome to the Principal Podcast. Happy to have you.
Very nice to be here. Nice to see you.
Let's jump straight into it. What got you into consulting, John? And what made you leave the golden handcuffs of IBM and AT&T and PA Consulting? Like, how did you end up here?
It's a good question. I actually started out at IBM as a salesperson, selling all the things you can imagine IBM sells: mainframe computers, mid-range computers back in the day, and then moved into consulting. But really what really kind of evolved from that was the experience I had in selling at IBM kind of prompted me into what I'm doing now, which is more of kind of the sales consultancy world, sales and marketing consultancy. But yeah, when I was at IBM, I was increasingly doing consultative selling, and it was a natural act to move into the IBM consulting group back in that day. And then we evolved that IT-based consulting into firms like AT&T and Unisys, and then PA Consulting later on. But actually, there was a company called Viant. I don't know if you've heard of Viant, but it was a very hot company in the first dot-com bubble of around 2000, 1998, 2000. And it's funny, you talk about consulting, but Viant, my experience in selling and how it worked from a sales perspective, the disconnect between marketing and sales back at IBM was completely transformed when I got to Viant. It was an incredible company. I'm sure we can talk more about that. It connected the strategy right to the execution, which is really a big focus of what we're doing.
So tell me about consultative selling. What do you mean with that?
Well, if you think of a spectrum of businesses, from on one end of the spectrum, highly consultative, like a Bain McKinsey type of a business model, and on the other end of the spectrum, a transactional click, try, buy type of transaction. The more left you are, the more towards you are to a consultative sale, the more consultative it is. You're not selling a tangible product, you're selling an intangible product. So it comes with a consulting craft, an understanding of the client's perspective, needs, friction points, opportunities, and then shaping a solution that's tailored to that rather than selling an off-the-shelf standard product.
So who is it that you... So I like this because we talk a lot about how to do consultative selling. Let's put a pin on this, but I want to ask you about it specifically in your business. Tell me about what the problem is that you solve today. Like, what is it that you're helping people achieve now?
Yeah. So now is a building on what I've been doing for the last 16 years. So to back up just a little bit, 16 years ago we started Revenue Architects. The idea, if you think of the name Revenue Architects, it's really not a sales issue or a marketing issue. It's all of the above. It's a revenue issue that we're trying to solve. And what the disconnect is what I experienced at IBM, and I'm sure a lot of people who've been in a selling motion have experienced over the years, because we see it constantly, which is the strategy of the company is in kind of an ivory tower, and it doesn't actually land in the day-to-day activity of the selling team or the marketing team in a demand gen campaign or in a sales campaign. So a good example of that would be like a playbook. We all have seen these beautiful playbooks, PDF document, 30 pages, personas, creative branding, messaging. They're actually great, and the content is great, but they're sitting in a PDF on the drive, on the shelf, and the sales team and the marketing team on a day-to-day basis are trying to run a campaign or build a messaging or deal with a client in the moment. And they cannot access that static document in a real-time and dynamic way. So what we're trying to solve now with our up-to-date business model, which is Revenue Architecture Operating System, is an AI-enabled platform to do that. So we're really trying to address the strategy to execution gap in the marketing and sales context. Help build strategy, but also surface that strategy in the motion of selling and in the motion of marketing on a day-to-day basis.
Who do you do that for? Like, do you have a specific vertical, niche, industry, company size that you're looking into? with helping with all that?
Yeah, so RAOS, revenue architecture operating system, kind of works for really anyone in the B2B or complex sales spectrum. I mentioned that continuum a few minutes ago, how you have sort of McKinsey, Bain, BCG on one side and the transactional selling on the other. We tend to work with high consideration. So if there's a trust-based sale, it's not transactional, it takes time, there's a committee sell, there's a relationship orientation. We talked about consultative selling. There's a needs analysis, a friction analysis, opportunity analysis. Those kinds of environments that are more complex is where we primarily live and where revenue architecture primarily lives. There's elements of revenue architecture that can work in the transactional side. There's classic methodology around selling that there's in there. But really where it works is in a team sell to committee buy complex environment. What I call left continuum, if you will. Yeah. Oh, and then let me just add, because you asked size. It works with anyone in those segments, but I guess where we primarily have worked with revenue architecture over the last 16 years is an earlier stage or private equity backed company. Maybe they're 10 million trying to get to 50 million, 20 million trying to get to 60 million. And they want to know kind of what that next level looks like. What is the operating model that is needed? What is a company that's selling 30 million? How does that differ from a company selling 5 million? And it's really building that architectural approach, that revenue architecture, marketing and sales motions, end-to-end strategy to execution connectivity. Yeah.
So talk to me about those revenue architectures. Like, what do you typically recommend for those high-end, high-ticket professional services firms? What can they learn from you and those revenue architectures that can help them increase/boost sales, like by implementing a few pieces of it today? What would be some elements that you typically look at first?
So good question. There's 3 layers to the model, to revenue architecture, essentially. One layer is the strategy layer. We talked a little bit about that. The third layer is the production layer, which is the day-to-day execution. In the middle is what we call the platform layer, and that's the brand platform that's more enduring. Your brand identity, your website, your LinkedIn profile, your presence to the market, if you will, your authority assets. There's the technology stack that you have to enable that, and then there's your operating model. How do you actually manage the motion of marketing and sales, and what are the dashboards and sort of tracking mechanisms around that? So really where the value is, and where I think professional services firms can benefit. I mean, professional services firms, we are one, and it's what I've been doing all these years. It's a consultative, typically very consultative sell. It is by definition an intangible product and offering. There's a need to go through an awareness motion in the demand gen world that is not like a SaaS environment. It's awareness level, but it's used through thought leadership. It's awareness and referral engines that are very important, and focusing on thought leadership is really important. So if you look at the motion of marketing and the motion of sales, it's quite distinct from that SaaS environment that so many people talk about, and that's where revenue architecture fits. It's defining strategy around things like who is it that your ideal client profile is, and what's your segment strategy. Specifically, what's your unique buying personas and how do they respond? What is your unique value messaging? And what is your go-to-market strategy? So packaging that up by segment allows a professional services firm to really understand what their motion is going to look like and who are they selling to, and making those hard decisions about who we're going to prioritize and not prioritize in the market, and what is our unique competitive selling proposition. And there's multiple levels of that: brand value proposition, offer value proposition, and audience value propositions. Kind of 3 main levels, and really defining that is what most professional services firms we work with are struggling with and need to codify. And then once you have that, again, you can roll that into the production side of the methodology.
So the way I like to look at sales usually is the more nurturing and effort you put into marketing, the easiest it is to sell. The least effort you put in marketing, the more you need to put effort into sales, right? Because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to go through the same cycle: problem awareness, solution awareness, pain cycles, authority, trust, and eventually leading to a call to action.
Yes. No,
for you, John, what has worked for you marketing-wise to get people through the door and for them to knock on the door and be like, hey, we are actually interested into your routes. Like, how do you think about marketing and what has worked for you guys to attract the right people?
Yeah, and so it's a little bit of what we do for our clients and what we do for ourselves, and we probably could do better, like a lot of firms, and eating, the expression "eating your own dog food." Are we doing enough? And full disclosure, no, the answer is we're not doing enough. But I'll tell you what it has worked for us and what has continued to work for us. But for context, we started the business in 2009, right after the 2008 recession and disruption in the markets. And we built the business on purpose to not necessarily scale, but to be highly sustainable and very low risk. So we have a flexible workforce that lines up with revenue. When revenue goes down, expenses go down with it. So we have a very low risk model intended from the outset to maintain a certain revenue level and if you will, a lifestyle structure, but not necessarily scale ourselves. But with our clients, we're helping them reach whatever objectives they have, which may be scale and maybe something more similar to us. But in all cases, the things that work primarily for us and for professional services firms we work with revolves around, really, nailing the delivery model so that you can build a referral engine. So it starts with referrals and kind of your existing client base, retention, and we have a concept we call 3 C's: continuation of the existing client relationship, crop rotation, which means you sell new things to the same client, and colonizations, sell in Division A over to Division B, for example. So we try to think of our existing clients in that context. But what works in the demand gen side in bringing in new business, referral engine, content, thought leadership, and we can't really advertise your way into new business because it's really a demonstration of expertise. So classic channels, LinkedIn, podcasts would be a good one. I haven't done a lot of podcasts, but we have several over the years, and they're very, very powerful ways for professional services firms to represent their unique selling proposition and thought leadership.
So within those professional services firms that you help, who is going to be the decision maker, so that we can try and understand with the audience who is it that you're trying to get in front of? Because I couldn't agree more. The importance of showcasing expertise even before you get into a call is key, right, for professional services. But for that, we need to make sure that we are showcasing expertise framed in a way that talks directly to the person who's going to make the decision. So for you, who is that? And I guess, how do you link it to podcasts, LinkedIn, thought leadership to make sure that they get the message across? And that eventually they're like, hey, now that we are facing this issue and that we want to scale, we're going to reach out to John. If that makes sense.
I think it does. I mean, so our clients are revenue leaders. So, and again, in the B2B world, it might be the chief revenue officer. And in many cases, in a professional services firm, they may have a chief revenue officer. If it's a smaller firm, it often is the CEO or principal. In a services firm that has more of a partner model, it could be managing partners at for different practice areas. So we might be working on with a professional services firm that has a particular area of practice that they want better support in their demand gen and sales motion, for example. So those are the CMO, CRO, CEO in the traditional role sense. In a professional services firm, that might be a managing partner, or they might actually have a formal functional role like chief revenue officer. A lot of that depends on the size and scale and nature of the services. If they tend to be more consulting practices like implementation of software services like a Salesforce consultancy or something of that nature, it might be more structured in terms of an organizational model. If it's more of a management consulting firm, more left on the continuum, it might be more partner-based. But in all those instances, those revenue leaders are the ones that need to implement this architectural approach and more predictable, sustainable model for revenue generation, and that's where we focus.
Love this. All right. tell us about the own dog food, John. How do you link all this to a conversation, a sales conversation, a letter of engagement, an SOW, we rock and roll? What does state-of-the-art sales motion look like for you guys?
Well, I think it starts with delivery right away. So instead of thinking of it as selling, it's really thinking of it in delivery and value add. In a consult, again, we're talking here about professional services and the intangible offering of business advantage rather than a particular hardened product or solution, which has levels of features and functions. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One is that from the outset of a conversation, it's all about an understanding and discovery of friction and opportunity, and then shaping thought leadership and solutions and educational opportunities around that. So we're not necessarily trying to sell something yet. We might be introducing our thought leadership and structural model as to how that capability can address that friction point or opportunity, but we're not yet at the point where we've shaped a proposal, which has to come from the unique circumstances of that client. So again, from day one, we're asking questions, discovery, sharing and educating with thought leadership, and ultimately creating a deeper understanding of the friction and opportunity that we can then shape a proposal to deliver against. Yeah.
No, that does make a lot of sense. It's always this thin line between selling or more like building the relationship, building trust, building authority, starting the delivery. I mean, we see a lot of people in the professional services space do that because that's just how you actually build trust and authority. Like, hey, here are tidbits of like typically what we would do, and here's how we think about this, food for thoughts and so on. But then there is always this thin line between working for free and actually building the relationship that builds up to a sale. Do you actively think about all this, or do you just give as much value as possible, as long as it's scalable, or as long as it's not like getting into the nitty-gritty of building the architecture? Like, where do you put the line of delivering the expertise and the thought leadership versus, hey guys, if we want to go further here, we must sign a letter of engagement? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so it makes me think of a model that we have implemented that is part of the methodology, RAOS methodology. It's called FACT, and essentially it's getting rid of BANT. We're all familiar with BANT. You know, the qualification model, you know, budget, authority, need, and timeline, BANT, often used in the transactional selling world, but we reconstituted that into something we call FACT, which is essentially a collaborative approach to qualification, right? So instead of it being, what's your budget, and you know, what's your, you know, all these hard questions or sort of one-sided questions that help. Sure, I'd like to know their budget as a selling person in a professional services context, but I want to explore the fit in a collaborative way. So FACT is a fit-based model instead of a budget-based model, right? So think of it as asking questions that allow us to get at the qualification of this opportunity, and it will eventually get to things like authority, decision-making, and budget, and compelling event or critical implementation dates and timelines, so that we can very quickly understand the business impact that this conversation is leading to. What impact could we have with this client? What need do they have? Do they have a timeline? Is there a compelling event for what they're trying to do? And that's all part of that discovery mutually. And we want to come to an agreement of fit in a collaborative way, not in a, you know, I'm the seller and you're the buyer in a confrontational model. It's more of a collaborative model. But that's the approach we would recommend most professional services firms take, and that's what we try to do as well.
I like it. I like people eating their own dog foods, because this is that they believe in the product that they are selling. Tell me about how you think about retention, John. So you come in, you build a revenue architecture, you help your clients kind of scale and build the architecture. So yeah, the revenue architecture that will help them actually have a smooth sales process. And then what? Right? What's the next thing? What's the problem that comes out of solving the revenue architecture problem? And how do you maximize a client relationship? How do you think about that?
Well, there's some good news and bad news, right, for us. So the good news is that we've had for the last 16 years a model that starts with some level of discovery and design or diagnostic, which opens up all kinds of doors around what the problem set might be, right? So in that 3-week diagnostic, we're uncovering we have the nine playbooks in our methodology. We uncover friction and opportunity across all those 9 and end up discovering, as a lot of professional firms do, a whole range of issues that need to be solved and the interconnectivity of those issues. So that opens up a whole new set of opportunities for projects. So then we implement those projects. It could be a brand refresh. It could be a messaging refresh, new segment strategies, sales effectiveness, marketing campaigns, standing up a new website. The list goes on and on. Then we get into, and this is the good news side, right? Then we've got the platform in place, and we start to convert that into a retainer-based relationship where we're executing against that platform, building campaigns and running campaigns, supporting must-win sales deals, supporting account plan motions and things like that. And that's a retainer-based model, which is a recurring revenue for us, which is great. Here's the bad news, and that's not terrible news. It's kind of good news, bad news, which is that you asked earlier about our ideal client profile. They tend to be growth stage. I'm 10, I want to get to 20. I'm 20, I want to get to 30. Well, the reason they want to get to 20 or 30 is often to be sold or rolled up in a private equity transaction. And at that moment, we've achieved our goals with them. We've put a whole lot of structure around their business, but now they've sold to a private equity firm, and literally on Tuesday that relationship ends because it's now, or maybe we work with that private equity firm, but most often they're large scale and they have their existing platform. So we go and do it again with another client. So with larger clients like a mid-market, 500 million to $1 billion, we have those clients as well. They tend to be ongoing relationships in the agency-based model, and they tend to have new projects on a continuous basis. Whereas the ideal client profile, which is the soup to nuts revenue architecture from ground zero, they have a life cycle, it's 5 to 7 years, and then they go through a transaction. But that's essentially been a good business model for us. Yeah.
No, I see how that fits into the right model. I mean, at the end of the day, normally the goal of a consultant is to fire themselves, right? Because you come here to fix a problem and you're able to get out at some point because you deliver the value for the client. Where it becomes interesting is if you've helped a client build the revenue architecture and they exit and they start another business, well, they know who to bring in to build the next revenue architecture. So that's the interesting tidbit. But yeah, no, I like it. Have you thought about, and that's out of pure curiosity here, but then building relationships with the private equity firms that purchase those firms and be like, hey, the fact that you bought it is because, probably they have a good revenue architecture. Would you like us to do for the rest of your portfolio companies? Is that something you've done in the past?
So we do and have worked with some private equity companies and that also opens up the referral model a little bit through that engine. Sometimes private equity firms, have in-house operating models where they essentially have a staff or experts in these roles within the private equity model. So certain private equity teams have greater need than others around that, but we have had success working with private equity, absolutely. And it's a terrific market for a lot of professional services firms. If they have a repeatable value system, I think that would be typically of great value and has been for us. Yeah, good point.
Amen to that. I like your style, John, so I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball question at you now. What's your number one challenge? What's the one nut that you're trying to crack that once you crack, you're gonna take the whole thing to the next level? What would that be for you?
So that is right where we are with the world of AI entering our business, and then think of professional services probably more than any other. Well, knowledge work in general, but certainly professional services have to be really on top of this. And so for us, it's an interesting opportunity because if we were just a generic agency or consulting firm doing ad hoc projects with some basic skills and minimal methodology, if you will, then it would be particularly challenging now. And I think we might even wind it down in this new world of AI. But because we have revenue architecture, because we have, and I'm sure other listeners and other professional services firms can look at their own, foundational elements and create this. But one of the challenges with AI, using AI now, is that there's hallucinations and drift, and it's really difficult to get consistent results from AI if you don't have a set of guardrails through methodology. So the opportunity for us now, we're almost in a pivot point. We can either wind it down and say we've had a great 16 years and we'll just kind of trickle along with some projects, or we can launch RAOS, which we're doing, which is essentially transforming our consulting-based methodology, maybe getting that book written that I started 6 years ago and never finished, but primarily what we've been doing now is deploying RAOS within Claude Enterprise and Gemini and ChatGPT through a skill platform, and then building that all out so that our clients and us as humans in the loop through a consulting motion can use AI and accelerate our value and delivery and efficiency 20x. I mean, it's an incredible opportunity. And so far in the last 6 months, we've deployed it in a number of our clients, and it's just transformed the quality of our deliverables, the speed to delivery. And we're starting to roll that out to other agency partners and clients inside their own enterprise. That takes a little bit of technical work to get our methodology into their cloud environment, if you will. But it's ready to be deployed now. So that's the big transformation we're going through. So great question for us, because we're literally in that junction point of choosing path A and versus path B. And really the new path is moving from professional services, being an agency and being a consulting firm, to being a methodology company, and really not doing the services as we traditionally did. Be more about certifying people to use the methodology, training people to use the methodology, licensing and improving and adding to the methodology over time, deploying that through AI. So that's pretty exciting for us.
So this is more of an opportunity than a challenge, though, John. So that's a very well played way to answer to this question. And so usually what I ask is, what's the other side of the coin? What's the big opportunity in your space? But I suspect this is RAOS. I'm trying not to butcher it, which is both the challenge and the opportunity. Like many consulting firms right now, it is indeed embracing AI the proper way. But yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I think your approach of trying to transform from just purely delivering the services to methodology services, how do you call it? Like selling a methodology more than a service?
Yeah, putting the methodology, which is now an operating system. So it's going from what was on paper, back to the shelfware story I told earlier. Right? Instead of having our methodology sitting on our drive as a bunch of paper, actually converting that into skill files in Claude, actually creating a structure that Claude can now follow a set of rules to keep it honest and keep it high value in the context of revenue architecture. So, defining ICP, defining messaging, defining all those things we talked about. So yeah, that's what's been an interest. And maybe I said it's more of an opportunity than a challenge, but it is a challenge for us too, because now instead of traditional organic selling and referral, now we have to go out into the broader market. Now we have to expand the visibility and awareness of RAOS, Revenue Architecture Operating System, to really the world, and certainly to the U.S. Market, and in a way that we have never had to do before in our small, focused, boutique kind of organic growth consulting model. So now we're looking at a whole potential motion of expansion that we have to eat our own dog food around awareness campaigns, sessions like this in terms of podcast opportunities, LinkedIn publishing, thought leadership, and then rolling out the operating system through a skill distribution model. Maybe that's through a Claude or through ChatGPT's market systems, but also like GitHub type of distribution, and getting awareness so that people actually download it, try it, and then convert into a licensed model. It's a challenging transformation for us, so that's not easy. I'm sure you.
With 100%. With all change comes challenges. John Stone, ladies and gentlemen. John, it was a masterclass. Thank you so much. If people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
It's a perfect pleasure. Thank you.
So where should people go if they want to find out more about you?
I didn't understand what you said. Yes. Revenuearchitecture.com. You can get a picture of what the revenue architecture methodology is about. It's just a page to kind of introduce it to you. The firm behind that is my firm called revenuearchitects.com, and we're the agency behind RAOS, and we're the team that's able to support the deployment of it. And it's a good fit for professional services firms or any high complex product and services selling. So have a look.
We will put all the links in the description. Check out revenuearchitecture.com. There is a full paper that you can download. We'll put all the links in the description. John, thank you so much for coming on the Principal Podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you learned valuable strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.